Welcome to PhotoNotes. Hi, I'm Tony Colangelo, and I'm with my good friend Wayne Capilli.
Morning.
Hey, Wayne, how are things?
Really well. How about you?
Just fine. I've been looking forward to today. Wayne, we've had such a good uptake on our last two-part series on doing twilights. And if by some chance any of you have missed that, you can go to either Wayne's or my YouTube channel to catch up on those Twilight videos, as well as all the other videos that we've made. But we have an ongoing sense of gratitude, not only for the fact that you continue to join us, but that you continue making suggestions for great topics. And we're going to be talking about a couple of them today. You know, it's funny, Wayne, within a few minutes of each other, we got two emails suggesting a topic. And they're kind of at opposite end of the scales, but they're kind of related. And that is, how do you shoot small spaces? How do you shoot big spaces? So they're on opposite end of the continuum, but they're related in the sense that both of these spaces can be very, very challenging for us as interiors photographers. Yes?
Absolutely. And it's good that we have two photographers to show two examples of big rooms and small rooms.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. But before we get into that, actually, I'd like to make a couple of announcements, if I may. I'm sure, as I hope many of you are aware, in about the third week of November, November 18th and 19th, Wayne and I are going to be at the terrific PFRE conference in Las Vegas. And on the first day of the conference, I think it's what, November 18th, 19th, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think on the first day, Wade and I are going to be on stage doing a session on photo critiques. And that's what I wanted to put out there today. If you have a photo that you would like critiqued anonymously, of course, in the description to this video, we're going to include a link that will allow you to submit a photo to a Dropbox folder that Wayne and I can have access to, and we'll try to incorporate in our session at Vegas.
Well, also,
And
wait. It's not just critiquing. If you also have a photograph that's particularly hard, that you want suggestions on what you could possibly do to make it better or shoot it differently, submit those kind of pictures too. We just don't want to critique pictures. We want to help you take better pictures.
Yeah, and that's really what I was meaning by the word critique, is an opportunity to give you feedback on not only what would make this photo or your submitted photo better, but also to talk about tips and techniques that you can take with you at future shoots or future editing sessions. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And by the way, if you have not registered for the PFRE conference, or you've been sitting on the fence about it, please give it some thought. You can go to the PFRE conference Facebook group and take a look and register. There's still a few seats available. Okay. As I said earlier, we're gonna tackle two topics in two separate videos. And today we are going to have the great Wayne Capilli talk about big rooms and how he handles them. Because I know, Wayne, you shoot a lot of them.
One of the things about big rooms is we tend to think of them as big rooms. So I just wanted to show you that we're not going to think of them as large rooms. We're going to take large spaces and break them up so they're easier to light.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so Wayne, take it away.
Okay, Tony. So I came into this room and it has these really great windows on the other side of the room. But the thing is, although there are lots of windows on this room really should be brighter. The normal thought is to make sure that you expose for the windows. And when you expose for the windows, the inside of the room becomes very dark.
Right.
So when you start lighting a room that's dark, you need very large strobes, lots of watt seconds. So instead of that, what I suggest is we are going to expose for the shadows. which is the base part of the room, and we're going to control the highlights.
Right.
So when we do this, our flashes don't have to work as hard, and we don't have to use as more powerful strobes.
Yeah.
So
So when you're saying, if I could jump in, when you're saying exposing for the shadows, what you're talking about is, yeah, you want to make sure that you have detail in the shadows, but you want the ambient light to fill up the room as naturally as possible, as much and hopefully as evenly as possible. Is that
Absolutely.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, we're going to expose for the shadows. We're going to control the highlights, and we're going to control the highlights by flash.
Great.
So I use very small strobes that I put into the room.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if we were to try to get a window pull with strobes from this distance, that's about, I don't know, 20 feet. And if we wanted to get an F8 at 20 feet, you'd need a 600-watt strobe just to get the window pull.
Oh, at least.
At least.
At least.
And even if you pointed it at even if you were going to do a window pull,
yeah,
and point it directly at it, what happens is, if you look, there's all this kind of glowy garbage that we need to get rid of.
Yeah.
So what I do is I put a strobe on the table far into the room, roughly about 6 to 8 feet away from the window, pointed towards the ceiling.
Right.
And I put one, if you look, there's one here on the table.
Coffee table, yeah.
On the coffee table. There's also one here on the dining room table that you can't see.
Yeah.
And just for good measure, there's a kitchen that I actually put another strobe in.
Right.
So once I push all those together and do it at full power, but these are very small strobes.
Yeah.
I get this as a flash layer. So
in your flash layer, you're doing the traditional thing. We're exposing for the brightest thing in the room, which is typically the window or the view. And then you're using your flash to light the space, so to speak.
Right. And again, the exposure in flash is based on the distance from flash to the subject. Yeah. My subject is the wall. Right. So I need to be, again, I'm like 6 to 8 feet, 6 feet away from the wall. Yeah. And let me show you multiple views. So this is a wider view of the room, and you can kind of see a little bit of the flashes. Yeah. If we take a step over, you can see the flash kind of on the table, middle table, and all the way into the kitchen. And that's terrific. Yeah. So what happens is the whole space, the rest of the room is pretty much exposed wall, but the whole wall, with the windows, the door, and all this other stuff is really, really properly exposed throughout the entire space. So you're doing this. Okay. So a couple of points here that I think are really important to make. One, you're doing it, by the looks of it anyway, with basic speed lights. Absolutely. You're not doing those big honking Godox flashpoint things, right? These are basic speed lights. These are Godox flashes, but yeah, I'm not using 200. Oh, well, the one of them is a 200, but it's at low power, but I am using very small strobes normally on spaces like this. Yeah. And the other point that I wanted to make, unless I'm wrong, Wayne, you haven't moved the strobes in any of these three pictures. No. So this is what you keep talking about on Facebook, and I'm glad that you do, about farming the light and just keeping the strobes in one spot for a given space or a couple of rooms. And you can take advantage of that. And in effect, you're saving time because you're not walking from room to room, moving flashes around all the time. Right. And what happens is, yes, you can see the strobes, and you kind of have to move them to have a second layer, but you don't have to change the exposure on them. Right. So again, I start here. Yeah. And theoretically, I just step over to the side, and this is already lit. I can take another step on the other side of the room, looking down the room. And again, my flash exposures are constant throughout any view in this room. in this series.
Nice. Okay.
So now that we have that, now that we have our ambient,
Yeah.
we have our flash layer.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is we're going to, what don't I like about this flash layer? Well, the ceiling's all messed up. There are shadows and all those other kind of things. But remember, I kind of want this more as a adjunct to the ambient light. So what I'm going to do is use the ambient.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a layer. I'm going to do a blend. Start here and whoop, the opposite way.
So you just did a gradient, right? You went over to the gradient tool on the left.
Yep.
And you just pulled a gradient basically through the wall ceiling joint because that's what you wanted to blend, in other words.
Right. And what happens is this is, since this is a flash layer,
yeah,
it kind of looks a little bright. So we can just kind of go in and bring back some of the ambient in these areas.
Okay, so now because, so you're painting in white now, right?
Yes.
Because you've got a black mask.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of blending it a little more. And so from here, we can just kind of bring it down.
Yeah.
And there we have it. It's okay. So we have this. And again, if you look at the amount of time that it took for post-processing, that was
nothing.
Yeah. So now we're going to remember the kitchen, we have, the space all the way through. Yeah. Again, the strobe is on the table and there's one in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And if we look, this is what the flash layer looks like.
Right.
And if we wanted to, we can take the flash layer. We're going to make it, let's do darken.
Right.
And we're
so
just
what you did just there, you opened up a black mask, which is Alt or Option plus clicking on the mask icon.
Yes.
Okay.
So from here, we're just going to lightly bring in the windows.
Nice.
Again, I didn't have to move the strobes. All this was set. And one of the things that is another plus about this is if we look at this part of the kitchen,
yeah,
because the light is coming in from a window, it's a very deep cyan, which means that there's a very little contrast in it. So we could boost it. But if we look at the flash layer, we have all this color and detail there. So
very rich.
Very rich. So we're going to do Command Shift Option E, which takes the darken mode thing that we did. We're going to place it on top of another flash layer.
Yeah.
Another mask. We're just going to lightly, maybe at 20%.
Yeah.
Just going to open this up, and you can actually, we're going to bring back some of that color and some of the detail that the flash.
That richness. Yeah.
That
and see, that's,
yeah.
For me personally, I've always prided myself on leveraging as much natural light as I can, but I always use flash as well for this reason, right. For color fidelity and that sort of pop that we just got in the color right there.
Right. So now that we've done this kitchen, again, this didn't take that much. I'm going to turn around, and this is this part of the, I really just turned around. This is the ambient. The flashes are in the same position as they were. I haven't moved the flashes.
Yeah.
And this is my flash layer. And I'm going to put a mask here.
So Wayne, and actually before you, can you like do a Control Z and get rid of that mask? Because one of the things that I wanted to ask you here, because for me, part of the success in effective blending is being able to use your mind's eye and to visualize the best pieces from your flash layer that you want to include in the blended result. And you want to be able to visualize and ask yourself, okay, what are the best pieces of my ambient layer? And you have to be able to visualize both. So could I ask you to maybe talk out loud as to what you're wanting to pull from your flash and what you want to retain from your ambient?
Okay, so in any room, as we do lighting and control lighting, the things that create mood and life in our picture is color and direction and the amount of light. So
Yes.
what happens is, if we do it here, if we look here, I can tell that the light is coming in from the window.
Yeah.
I can
No,
tell
definitely.
that and there's a certain volume of light coming in through the window.
Yeah.
So when I do fill light, when I use flash, what happens is I put in a space where when I blend it, the shadows don't conflict with the ambient light coming in.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's what I mean. So that's why I put it in deep. So it's literally right across from the window.
Yeah. So
And
you're not placing flashes by the wall on the left because the right is the wall, the light is coming in right to left.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
going right across will create, yes, it creates shadows, but it creates more logical shadows as opposed to just coming in from an angle. You can
Yeah.
actually kind of see when light comes in from another angle. I mean, you're blending it. That's one of
Yeah.
the problems that you have, is that the
Yeah.
light creates shadows that conflict.
Right.
So when we do that, we're going to do the mask. We're going to do
Black mask.
darken,
Yep.
and we're just going to lightly do like 30% just to get the glow out. And see,
Nice.
my shadows don't conflict with the light coming in.
Boy, that looks great to me, just like that.
Absolutely. But
Wow.
again, the light, the strobes are in the same position, and because the lights are in the same position, the exposure remains constant on that wall through the entire series of when I'm working with it.
Nice.
And again, this took seconds to do.
So that's how you do big rooms. You take advantage of what Mother Nature gives you
Mhm.
and go from there.
Right. It's, one of the things, especially rooms this size, I don't, you don't want to light it with flash. You don't want to have to bring in
Oh,
flashes to light a room.
yeah. Because, and actually, even practically speaking, if you're shooting this wide, where the heck are you going to hide your flashes? I mean, if you have to use so many of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, so what happens is I had come up with a kind of each of these strobes were like $150. So watt second wise, this costs $500 worth of strobes to do this. So if you use a $600 strobe to do, to light areas, take your watch seconds and figure out how much it costs to light it. And this is actually the most cost effective way to light large rooms.
Very nice. Okay, so that is that pretty much covers it for today in terms of shooting big rooms. We hope you got lots of useful nuggets from Wayne's presentation, and we certainly hope that you'll join us for our next installment of PhotoNotes, where I'll be taking the reins and talking about addressing some of the challenges of small spaces. So until then, please be well. Thank you again for joining us. Wayne, as always, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, expose for the shadows, control the highlights, and let's go over to Tony.
Terrific. Okay.